Have you ever stopped to think about how all the energy that powers our world actually gets to us? It travels through this massive, incredibly complex network of pipelines that crisscross the entire globe. It's a wild feat of engineering, for sure. But what keeps it all from going wrong? Well, it all comes down to these invisible rulebooks. And today, we are pulling back the curtain on a really crucial one, ISO 14313. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about what a global standard even is. Then we're going to zoom right in on what this particular standard is all about, pipeline valves. After that, we'll get into why this stuff matters so much. Then, and this part's pretty cool, we'll see how it works as part of a clever partnership. And finally, we'll look at the brand new update for 2025. So let's kick things off with the most basic question of all. When we say something is an international standard, what are we actually talking about? You know, the document itself gives us the perfect definition. ISO, which stands for the International Organization for Standardization, isn't some single company in a boardroom making up rules. It's actually a worldwide federation. So think of it kind of like a United Nations for technical stuff, where all these experts from different countries come together to agree on the single best way to build or do something.
Here's a great way to think about it. It's like a master recipe for the entire world, right? If everyone, no matter if they're in Germany, Brazil, or Japan, uses the exact same recipe, they're all going to end up with the same cake. Well, an ISO standard does the exact same thing but for industrial parts. It guarantees quality, safety, and that things will just work together no matter where on Earth they were made.
Okay, so if a standard is our master recipe, what exactly is being cooked up with this one, with ISO 14313? Well, let's zoom in and look at the key ingredient it covers. Pipeline valves. Yeah, the official title is a bit of a mouthful, but every single word is there for a reason. It's super precise. This rulebook is specifically for valves used in pipeline systems that transport oil, gas, and even lower carbon energy. These things are basically the critical gatekeepers for our entire energy infrastructure. And we're not just talking about one kind of valve. The document lays out 5 main types. You've got things like gate valves, which are pretty much simple on-off switches. And then you have check valves, which are like one-way doors, making sure stuff only flows in one direction. They all have different jobs, but ISO 14313 makes sure every single one of them is built to the exact same high standard. So you might be thinking, wow, this is a ton of detail for something as simple as a valve. And that brings us to the most important question, really. Why? Why go through all this trouble? Why do these standards actually matter? It all boils down to 2 huge words, trust and safety. Seriously, imagine you're building a pipeline in the North Sea and you're using valves that were made in South Korea. You need to know with 100% certainty that those valves are going to work perfectly under unbelievable pressure. Because if one fails, the consequences are just catastrophic. We're talking environmental disasters, huge economic losses. This standard isn't just a guideline, it's an invisible shield. Now, this concept of trust has a formal name, conformity. And what's really interesting is the language the standard uses. It's so direct. It says the responsibility to meet all the requirements lands squarely on the manufacturer. There's no wiggle room at all. And this is where the standard really shows its teeth. See, conformity isn't just a suggestion, it's a binding promise. A manufacturer has to provide a formal document, a statement of conformity. That is their guarantee their product follows every single rule in the book. It's a paper trail of accountability that literally underpins the safety of our global energy system. Okay, now here's where things get really clever. ISO 14313 is incredibly powerful, but it doesn't stand alone. It's actually one half of a very smart and efficient partnership. So ISO 14313 is designed to work with another major standard called API 60. You can think of API 60 as the huge foundational textbook. It's got everything. Now, ISO 14313 doesn't try to rewrite that whole textbook. Instead, it's like a small but critically important supplemental chapter that adds a few extra requirements to make it work for everybody all around the world. It's a really efficient way to do things. So, what does this actually mean for a company making these valves? It's a pretty clear 3-step process. Step 1, you build your valve so it meets every single rule in that foundational API 60 standard. Step 2, you add the extra specific rules that are laid out in ISO 14313. And once you've done both of those things, you get to do step 3.
you can officially stamp ISO 14313 right on the valve's nameplate. And this brings us to our final section. Because, these rulebooks can't be set in stone forever. Technology changes, we learn new things, and the standards have to evolve to keep up. And that's exactly why we have a new version for 2025. This timeline here tells the story perfectly. The last version of this ISO standard was from way back in 2007. But then, in 2021, its partner document, that foundational API 6D, went through a huge rewrite. And because the ISO standard is a supplement to that, it absolutely had to be updated too, just to stay in sync. And that's what this new 2025 edition is all about. It's all about getting back in alignment.
And let's be clear, this wasn't just about changing a few words here and there. The source document itself calls the update to API 6D a major rewrite. So that means this new 2025 version of ISO 14313 isn't just a formality, it's a crucial, necessary technical revision that brings the entire global standard up to speed with the latest and greatest industry specifications.
So, when you boil it all down, a document that seems really dry on the surface, like ISO 14313, is actually a vital piece of the invisible architecture that keeps our world running. It's a global promise of safety and quality that makes sure the energy we all depend on can travel thousands of miles safely. It just goes to show how much of our modern lives are built on these unseen rules. Which kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What other invisible rulebooks are shaping your world right now?